Wait, what if your retirement plan could do more than just survive market shocks? In this video, we'll show you how we turned two steady incomes into a strategy that gave us more freedom, more control, and real peace of mind. Want to make your money and your marriage work smarter in retirement? Don't miss this. So this wasn't just about my retirement or my Social Security. It was about household cash and the decision we made together.
And my pension and Social Security were a critical part of the math. Dean's age at decision is 64. My age is 71. And we planned it as a unit and not as a separate retirees.
Yeah, and we assumed a 23% Social Security cut starting in 2035 to stress test all the math. So our guaranteed income baseline is made before any housing choice was made because we wanted to make sure that we had an idea of how much income we'd have coming in and then tailor our housing choices and our budget to fit within that income. So before we even looked at housing, we nailed down what income was guaranteed, and that was no matter what the markets did.
Well, my guaranteed income pension from my job with the state is $1,084 a month. And that's approximately $13,000 a year. And that also includes our insurance needs as well. And then my Social Security is $1,362 a month, making that about $16,344 a year pre-cut. The combined guaranteed income is $2,446 a month, or approximately $29,352 a year. That steady income became the anchor for every housing scenario that we looked at.
So my Social Security timing is the variable lever that we're basing all of our decisions upon from the standpoint of both housing and income. And at 65 and 4 months, which is January of 27, I'll be getting $3,105 per month pre-cut. At 66 and 4 months, which would be January of 28, I would get $3,378 a month before the Social Security cuts.
So then the question became, which housing choice lets Dean retire sooner without stressing the portfolio? Option one was staying where we were, right in the home. Now, our housing cost was $2,132 a month. Plus, we figured in a $25,000 remodel at age 75, which was the highest fixed cost of all the options that we looked at.
Yes, and the remodel was based on the fact that we had a two-story house, and a single story is really what we needed because both of us were having problems getting up and down the stairs, and we knew that in the not too distant future, we were going to need a one-story house. So even with my wife's pension and her Social Security covering a large part of our baseline expenses, staying in the house required significant additional income every month. And that would have meant that impact on my Social Security timing would have meant that I would not be able to go to retire anytime soon because I would have to stay longer to get more income coming in. And that higher housing cost meant that we would have to withdraw more frequently from our portfolio, as well as that, again, as I mentioned, the greater pressure to claim my Social Security later than at 65 and 4 months or 66 and 4 months. So one of the things that higher housing cost meant was less margin if the markets declined, because we would then be taking money out of our portfolio every month to accommodate the higher cost of living. And so when we did all of this in a Monte Carlo simulation, we ended up with the 23% Social Security cut assumed at age 73, my portfolio would be worth $573,000. At 80, it would be $619,000 and $550,000 at age 90. Now that's if we kept the house. Then that's assuming that we didn't have to make further repairs on the house and spend more money on the house. So staying worked on paper, but it leaned hardest on the portfolio and future repairs.
So option 2 was renting. We looked around, and after much research, actually physically going into the apartments, we averaged our rent would be about $1,850 a month, which was an annual increase of about 3%.
When we did the Monte Carlo simulation, we anticipated at least a 3% increase across the board on everything, and that 3% would have gone entirely against $1,850 a month, plus whatever extras we got.
Yeah. This was with no maintenance. We didn't have all the maintenance that we would have with the home, but then you're looking at rising cost. So renting looked manageable early because my guaranteed income offset it a lot, but inflation is slow to eating away at that advantage.
And so the impact on my Social Security timing, that is when I take Social Security, was that because the rising rent would then erode our fixed pension plus Social Security income from Beth, that would increase the long-term dependency on my Social Security and make it so that I had to work longer to get more Social Security. And thus, it would create a certain amount of insecurity later in life regarding our portfolio and how much it was going to grow over the time. So the projected assets, again, we talked about age 73, that's $599,000, age 80, $769,000, and age 90, $718,000. So you can see that it made a little bit of difference in the portfolio projections, but not enough, not a lot, not enough to give us a lot of security to it.
Now we're looking at option 3, which is buying a condo, and that's the one that we chose. Their monthly cost was approximately $1,100 a month. This included HOA fees, taxes, insurance, and the annual growth assumed again was 3%.
3%, yes.
That was with no large remodeling shock. And this is where my income came in, and it really mattered.
Yes, and the annual growth assumed, again, when we're talking about either staying in the home or we're talking about the condo, the actual growth of the 3% only applies to the HOA fee in the condo, and in the housing, it didn't apply to the mortgage at all or to the mortgage in the condo. So we won't be, that 3% inflation rate won't apply to our mortgage, but it will apply to the HOA fee. So that's why since you're talking about a much smaller amount of money, that inflation has less effect on the overall numbers. And so when we talk about why the condo has worked best for us from the financial perspective, her pension plus her Social Security covers a large portion of the fixed living costs. And the condo kept the housing low enough that portfolio withdrawals will be modest or non-existent until I have to get to RMDs, required minimum distributions, at age 73. So this allowed us to start my Social Security earlier, meaning that we could then travel and do some things we want to do while we still had the health to do so. It also helps to decrease the pressure of the inflation on how far our money goes. Now, as far as projected assets, at age 73, we should have $626,000 in our portfolio. At age 80, $850,000, and age 90, $959,000 in the portfolio. And you can see by the projected assets that the condo absolutely came out ahead from that perspective. And the condo didn't just lower expenses, it let her guaranteed income do more of the heavy lifting. So to give you some of the big insight, right? We have two incomes and we have one strategy between us. And because my wife already had reliable income, the smartest move wasn't maximizing assets, it was minimizing fixed costs. And by minimizing fixed costs, the biggest cost to us was the cost of housing. And lowering that housing cost stretches her pension and Social Security further. It reduced our dependency on the markets for the portfolio. Right? So the longer that we can avoid having to take withdrawals from our portfolio, the more we have in there, and the better we are able to weather any downsides of the market. And finally, what was really important to both of us was giving us control over my Social Security claiming age so that we could then both be retired and enjoy our lives together.
So here's why retiring at 66 and 4 months still won. Across all the housing options, retiring later added $80,000 to $150,000 to our long-term assets. But the condo amplified the benefit the most. The lower the housing cost, plus the higher the Social Security, equaled compounding stability for us.
So even assuming the 23% Social Security cut, healthcare inflation, long-term care premiums, which we are actively paying, we do have long-term care premiums, and longevity into our 90s, the ranking never changed. Condos were always first, rent second, and stay in the house last. Now, one of the things that we did was we created a spreadsheet for you to be able to see these numbers and look at them along with us. And you'll see what our expenses are, you'll see what the costs are, and it'll compare the house, stay in the house versus rent versus condo. And you'll be able to take out our information and put your own in and do that calculation for yourself. And that will help you. And that spreadsheet is in the description below, so you can download it.
So if you're planning retirement as a couple, don't isolate the decisions. Ask what income is guaranteed, what expense is fixed, and which housing choice lets guaranteed income do most of the work.
Yeah, I think it's a very important aspect to think about the income versus what your expenses are. And the expenses, the more you can reduce your expenses, the less works for you. And that's what this channel is all about, is that less is the new retired. We want to show you that decreasing your costs help you to increase your income, or at least make your income go further into retirement.
And it increases your enjoyability.
It does.
And
it does.
Later in life.
And the sooner you can get retired, the better off you are, because then you're healthy enough to be able to go to the places that you want to go without necessarily being tied down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because there's going to be plenty of time after you get into your 80s that you won't be able to go places and that you wish you had gone earlier.
Yeah.
So in closing, downsizing didn't shrink our life.
No.
It aligned our housing with both incomes, and that's what makes everything work from our perspective. As I mentioned before, we created a spreadsheet to help you understand what you need to know about your budget. If you download the spreadsheet, there's an instruction tab that walks you through it step by step. Start there, because the income gap tells the story. Are you going to be able to afford it? And what do you need to change to be able to afford it going into retirement? And how soon can you apply for Social Security and start your retirement? So if you have enjoyed this video, please help us out and like, share, and subscribe. Subscribing is free, doesn't cost you a thing, but it helps us out and helps grow the channel. We appreciate you coming and watching. Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.